And we're back. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from beautiful downtown Blue Ridge, Sycamore Crossing. And the noise you hear in the background, I think that's the engine on the train.
Yeah, it is. And we'll hear the whistle soon.
Whistle soon. Right. Welcome, Dr. Whaley. We apologize that we have this abbreviated segment of Ask the Doc, but we have a full show today. Dr. Whaley, you always have a couple things that you research throughout the week that you're keeping up with. So I don't minimize the time. Let's start with that. Can we go there first?
We'll do that and we'll bounce in and out of questions because Sam is one of the good examples of one of these questions here. First of all,
how do you make a good example every week for something
I'm doing? Okay, all right. First of all, you get your Zika update.
Okay.
It's the middle of the summer now.
Yes.
I was chewed up by mosquitoes last night out at the home of one of your all-star panel. There have been no documented cases of Zika transmission in the state of Florida in 2017. And remember, this time last year we had two hot spots in Florida where there was little mini epidemics of Zika. Now they attribute that as much to the mosquito population eradication as to the fact that the Zika virus isn't in people's blood. There have been 4 active cases in this state of Texas. One brand new case came up 2 days ago in a new county that didn't have it before. Those counties are all down around the Brownsville area. So the Zika virus isn't dead, but what we thought might have occurred this year does not seem to be occurring. So take comfort in the fact that the spraying of the mosquitoes and the public service announcements probably about dumping the water out of your backyard have done some good.
Well, that's a great update because, you and I were together last year when this was really at the height of media attention. And, and there was some good advice, tip the water over, don't leave old tires. And there was
bottle caps,
everything. And there was a lot of great public information that, and the work that has, where we have an update like this today. So, I mean, that's a good update.
Question. All right, now we'll flip over to one of the questions that Elmy asked the doc was, can you sit too much? How does that question?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What are the risks of sitting too much?
All right, so we've talked a couple weeks ago about the economy class syndrome blood clot flying in an airplane. So when you're in an aircraft and you're sitting for a long period of time, that airplane is pressurized at 6,000 to 8,000 feet. Your oxygen tension is low, your feet tend to swell, the circulation in your legs is poor, and particularly if you are moderately overweight, or if you're wearing tight garments, or if you're taking birth control pills, or if you're pregnant, or any of the things that can increase your risk of clotting, then you get the risk of a blood clot in your leg. You land 2 days later, you throw a pulmonary embolism, and you die. In no industrial or secretarial place today would you expect that to happen in a up-to-date company, because they are so paranoid about OSHA and about following the rules and having the comfortable computer tables and chairs. And we have people in our offices who actually stand to work doing a computer job, and others who sit on almost like one of those balls in the exercise club, so that they're always kind of changing direction. They are required to take a 15-minute break in the middle of the morning, which means that they only sat an hour and 45 to 2 hours, and then they had to get up and leave for 15 minutes, and then they took another hour and 45 minutes, and then they got to walk for half an hour because they got to go to lunch, and they have to punch in and punch out. So all of that sounds sort of militaristic, but what they're doing is protecting themselves from those people getting clots. Now, take it away from the industry, take it away from the airport, and put some partially disabled or elderly person at home who sits on a recliner for 4 or 5 or 6 hours at a time, and only activity they got is punching the remote control. There is a danger there of clotting in the legs. Those people should get up and walk around. And that's about all you can say about the danger.
Well, on the dangers of clotting in the legs, I have seen a lot of advertising where there's, there's desks that are here and they will raise up so people can work. And I really do think that's good. And I'm not in favor of sitting for long periods of times in one place, but I understand what you're saying.
You sit in front of the screen for a long time, but if you'll notice, Sam's sitting over there. Sam's taking her legs and she's sticking them forward, but putting them back. She's wiggling her feet. So actually, she's doing what she would need to do if she sat that way for 5 or 6 hours. But she also gets up and walks around a little bit. So it puts me on to my. I'm gonna take responsibility for bad behavior today. And I'm
waiting for this.
I am bad.
Pay attention, Sam.
Pay attention, Sam. Not you, but I am bad about not taking responsibility for my actions and about not admitting if I've hurt somebody's feelings, even though I didn't mean to do so. But there are two terms that I have repeatedly denigrated, and those terms are microaggression and safe space. And we went through that with this business, with the college campuses and everything else. And there was a study published in England yesterday that almost made me cry, because it made me realize that I was a guilty party, and it was, what was titled was Obesity, Fat, Shame. And it said that people who are obese, whose healthcare providers approached them in a fashion that made them feel microaggressed, such as they would look at the chart and look at the weight and make some facial judgment, or they would go tisk, tisk, tisk like that, or some sort of body language that they did not approve of the weight. And then repeatedly, I will say, this patient has lost 4 pounds in the last 3 months. That would be 16 pounds in a year and 160 pounds in a decade. The trend is in the proper direction, so I'm giving them reinforcement. But I'm also guilty of saying this patient has gained 4 pounds in 3 months, which would be 12 pounds in a year and 120 pounds in a decade, in a negative fashion. And I now know that if by doing that, I'm creating a fear that I might fuss at them. Okay, now what the British system showed was that the people who have had that, who are overweight, go in to see the doctor for complaints like cough or abdominal pain or whatever, almost 40% less than people who are not overweight, partially because they don't want to put up with the negative approach of the staff or the physician or whatever, and therefore they are underdiagnosed for things like peptic ulcer disease or some real chronic illness that's causing them to have symptoms. So we in the health profession have created a barrier to an overweight patient wanting to go get looked at for, a bearing that's squeaking or something in their body. And if we're guilty of that, if I'm guilty of that, I want to try and change my behavior.
I have a quick question on that. So, see, I've always been in favor of, or actually have chose my doctor due to the quality of care I feel I receive, and then also to the fact that that they're honest with me. See, I accept the brutally honest, and I think everybody accepts things different. So I accept the direct, you better do this, or I go to my doctor and my doctor says, look, you're gonna take medication or do this. Which one are you gonna do? If you want to this. So, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So, but
that's a personality thing. I do believe, but if you just look at the way you're living your life, earning your living, and everything else is to be out there to weigh evidence, to present evidence, to make decisions based on evidence or opinion or whatever. But you're in the marketplace of ideas, and it's people who do that can weigh evidence and say, look, the guy's telling me the truth, But you know, I'm still going to drive 15 miles over the speed limit, leave my seatbelt off. But you've made a judge decision. I think it's another personality.
So are you saying you've made a decision to focus on your microaggression?
I'm going to. And another thing, you were talking about that truck.
I can't help it.
I honestly haven't figured out how to do anything with it yet and turn the interior lights on. But I have an appointment this afternoon at the end of the day with Dr. Ray Tidman, who has a similar truck, a couple of years older, and who is a rocket scientist and is really big on technology.
So you have an appointment he's going to go through.
I have an appointment. He's going to, Dr. Tidman, younger guy, is going to take me through how to drive my truck.
That's great.
I can't turn on the interior lights. So at least by the time I go home tonight, I'll be able to turn on the
Well,
interior.
I will say this, two things. Number one, it's absolutely a beautiful truck. And number two, I am sure you're in good hands with Dr. Tidman, the rocket scientist, is going to show you how to push. He's going to push the buttons this afternoon.
I got another one I want to touch on really quickly. The big news that came out yesterday and day before yesterday that got tremendous amounts of publicity was the study from Oregon where they learned how to splice fix a genetic mutation, not genetic mutation, a congenital genetic defect in an embryo that causes hypertrophic subaortic stenosis in the heart. Now, they did 72% of the embryos that they tried to repair were successful, and therefore, if those embryos had been implanted into a woman to have a baby, they would have then eliminated that defect from all of the children in the next 100 generations of the donor. The donor of that sperm has hypertrophic subaortic stenosis, caused hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, caused by a genetic defect. Well, what in the world are you talking about? Last week, a boy died on a soccer field in Atlanta, 16 years old, of a congenital cardiac defect, which is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It is the most common cause of sudden acute death in male and female athletes that are really well. The guy that Lynn Bias that died from that was drafted by the Boston Celtics and died at his first practice, died of that disorder. So that's a real serious disease, and now they got the ability to manipulate that gene and make it better. Well, the bad part of all this is if they can make that gene better, then they can make this and make your kids taller, or they can make them more blonde or do something else. So the actual technology, I didn't think was going to get this far, and nobody predicted that they would get this far before 2030. So they're 13 years ahead of what the scientific community thought the pace would be. But this is an opportunity to eliminate in the progeny of families sickle cell disease, cystic fibrosis, multiple of these conditions that people were born with that come to a genetic mutation in the egg. And the last one is the BRCA gene, the breast cancer and ovarian cancer gene. So the fear of the conservative and Christian community is you're messing with God's work over here, and people are going to want to create supermen like Hitler did. And then on the flip side, that you would like to eliminate parents having kids with cystic fibrosis or sickle cell disease. So I don't have any idea where it's going to go, but when the news jumped all over it and said it was a big deal, it is a really big deal.
We have 2 questions left, and I'm not for sure on our time, so I want you to pick which one you'd want to address.
6 minutes.
Random.
Okay. I have spider veins in my legs. What options are available to remove them?
That's a really good question. I have a patient that's almost disabled by spider veins, but 99% or 98% of the spider vein complaints are cosmetic. My particular patient has real severe varicose veins that began to appear when she was in grammar school, and by the time she was in her teens, she had knotty varicose veins that began to clot and then had spider veins. So that patient has the possibility of having those large varicose veins stripped, thrombosed, all the various procedures that shut off the blood flow in them, and then the downstream spider vein would sort of slide away. The cosmetic spider vein has no adverse effects. The only thing that's the adverse about it is you look up and you can see it on the side of the shorts of the bathing suit of the woman who has it, and there are a number of cosmetic venous techniques that the vascular surgeons and the cosmetic surgeons do, from injecting them and sort of cutting off the blood supply so they fade away, to injecting them and having them shrivel up. But the cosmetic spider vein issue is one of economics. It's not cheap, and the people who do it are in specialty vein clinics that are largely not cheap. And there's no real downside to having the regular spider vein, except cosmetics. If you don't have the thing my other patients got.
My husband. Why do they always have to start with my husband? Okay, but we're going to go with that anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to go with that. My husband constantly craves salt. What causes that?
Well, it depends what your husband does. If he's a fireman in the destroyer in the Navy in a fire room, he needs a ton of salt because he's sweating all day long and he's sweating away salt. That's a biological need. If he seems to be craving salt in a very ridiculous manner, he needs to go see Ray Tidman, because there are some salt wasting nephropathies where you eat the salt and you urinate it out in your urine, and there are some kidney issues with it, there's some blood pressure issues with it, and you need to see the doctor. The large majority of the people that aren't using up a whole bunch of salt in a very heavy athletic or occupational way and sweating all the time and don't have some sort of metabolic kidney disorder over here are about 80% of people in the middle who like the taste of it.
I have backed away. I used to really crave salt. I used to, and I enjoy salt. Craving, if you can think about. All right, that's yeah.
If you can think about what you mean by craving, there are people who have bad iron deficiency anemia that you've heard that eat starch or eat dirt or chew ice. That's called pica, P-I-C-A, and that is a craving. So here's a normal person with a normal type diet, and they want to go out and eat Argo starch, or they start eating buckets and buckets of ice. Some of them might eat coffee grounds. Now that's a pathological craving caused by iron deficiency.
Okay.
Now, when somebody enjoys salt, I like sea salt better than regular salt, and I'll pass up salt on something if it can't be sea salt, but if it's sea salt, I'll put it on there. That's a preference for, that's a like for, but that's not a craving.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Whaley, I have a minute, and I have to get set up for our congressman. Congressman Doug Collins will be on with us here in about 3 minutes.
Yeah,
so
Sam's got to go over there and play with the equipment.
Yeah, he's got to get it all ready. Well, you know, Dr. Whaley, we usually don't do phone calls on Friday, but the media is not allowing information to get out, is my opinion. And I want to give the congressman an opportunity.
There's something wrong with the media?
Yeah, I want to give the congressman an opportunity to tell this district what is actually going on in the House that doesn't get reported. You have any final comment other than we do have your tab? Let me check your schedule. You got your tab, you got your laptop, you got your notes, you got an appointment with Dr. Ray Tidman to go through the truck.
Yeah.
Sounds like a full day.
It does. I'll tell you one thing. Another study. A lot of these studies are coming from England, which is interesting, and it was that people were going to yoga as a fix for various musculoskeletal discomforts. 21% of them got worse, and 11% of them got a different sort of pain. And so there was a big bunch of publicity that you better not go do yoga, so it's not any good. And one of the large health plans over there said, well, why don't we compare that to the Pilates classes and the other classes? It turned out the numbers are exactly the same all the way across. So any one of these activities that you pick up to try and train yourself, you can stress something, you can get a new something, but they're all good. So don't let one thing that makes it to the National Enquirer saying yoga people got worse make you not go back and do yoga, because if they could have changed the word and said Pilates, or they could have changed the word and said core strengthening or something, and all of them did exactly the same thing.
Dr. Whaley, I appreciate you very much. And again, we apologize for this brief segment of Ask the Doc, but it will be on YouTube, our YouTube channel. We're going to take a break. We're only going to be gone long enough to get Congressman Doug Collins plugged into the soundboard, check everything out. So don't go away. We're not going to have a full break. We'll be back with 9th Congressional District Congressman Doug Collins right after these messages.